Okay, so I'll go ahead and get started. Today's webinar is the intro to Perception Neuron Plugin to Unreal. These are our team members for everyone who's out there who wants to email us, contact us directly. That's our email. This webinar will be recorded and shared afterwards, so if you do miss something, I went over it pretty quick. Make sure you guys check it out on the YouTube. We'll post, we had a video on last Friday that'll also be posted, so keep an eye out. That's being added to our stay-at-home, Mocap at Home webinar series there. So as I mentioned earlier, this webinar is, introduction to Perception on the real-time plugin that we have, and also using the plugin that we have on our website to use it as a BVH direct. Many users are familiar with using it real time, but there's actually another function that can allow you to assign a BVH file from an exported file from Access Studio. So this is just a quick overview of use cases. As I mentioned, there's real-time and BVH file. With real-time, how would you use real-time data from our software? You can use either Access Studio, Access Neuron Pro, Access Neuron. You can use all our Access software to stream real-time data to this plugin, so it's ready out of the box. So in real time, you can control character at gameplay. This is something that it's good to just have a look at how your character moves around in space. If you want somebody to perform like your character, like a casting, if you will, that's kind of a good way to use the plugin, and also use it in somewhat of a VR. Now, in VR integration, we always suggest users to use it as a second person interaction. So maybe somebody has a headset on, you have another person in the space just doing a performance of a character, maybe a zombie, maybe something personal, and that gives your interaction another level. With FPV, first-person view, this is kind of a bit tricky. This is more an advanced integration where, we are sued right now at the moment. It's inertial based, so therefore it's tracking relative. We suggest users to use, if you're using a headset for VR, use a headset positional data to move the character around in space. There is such integrations to add that, but that's more of an advanced class in that case. But those are kind of use cases for the real time, and for BVH. Again, if you have a library of motion capture files that you recorded, you can export them, put them in the Unreal project, and you can toggle different animations just to see how the character moves around. That format in the plugin is not ready to be used for player control. This video will just cover how you can select different BVH files to that. On Friday's class, this upcoming class, we'll talk a little bit more on how to use animation from our software to use for character control. How do you do a walk cycle? How do you have an idle movement per se? So if you want to, you can build a little repertoire of different animations. You can do that and then use that as a for your player animation during gameplay. That's more or less sums up that side. Okay, so without further ado, let me make sure that I can switch over to my screen here. Ari, can you see my screen just to make sure I'm not losing anybody?
Yes, I can.
Awesome.
Yep.
So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask Ari. Ari's our mocap tech here at Neudem. If you have any questions regarding the mocap stuff, feel free to ask on the chat, and he will be there available for you. So let's get started with the where to find a plugin. The plugin, it's on our website. If you go to neomocap.com/software/unreal, and then on this page, you have here the plugin to download. Right now, we're going to be using 4.2 plugin. You can see that we also have an Unreal Live link. I'll make it a big announcement. Next week, we're going to be covering this topic with someone from Unreal, so make sure you guys stay tuned. For this webinar, we're just going to cover the Unreal integration. So I've already downloaded the Unreal integration. I have this folder here ready for me. I have the plugin and I have a couple of characters I'm going to work with. So to get started, we're going to open up the Epic Games launcher, go into the library, and as I mentioned, we're going to start with the Unreal 4.24. So this is, I'm starting off from scratch. There's going to be some little bit of waiting time. I hope you guys just hang in there, and it's going to be a quick just overview of how to set up the integration. So the idea is when you create a new project here, you want to create a blank project, um, and then we want to make this system a blueprint based, not C, C++ or anything, blueprint, and we're starting off with no starter contact. I will go ahead and just assign this to the folder that I have here, and I'm going to just name this, you can name this however you want, PN webinar, create project, and then Unreal Editor is going to open. It's going to take some time. This is a bare bone project, so there's not much going on. Right now, you can see we have no plugins with Perception Neuron. So in order for us to add the plugin for Perception Neuron, we need to copy that plugin that we downloaded and put it in the project folder. So in order to do that, we need to close Unreal, and you're going to see the Unreal Epic Game Launcher open briefly. And let me just minimize this. So what I want to do is to add a plugin to my project. I will create a plugins folder. Okay, now I've created a plugins folder. And then what I'm going to do is, this is the zip file that I had earlier. I will unzip the folder that I downloaded from our website. And this folder has all the plugin, all the the important stuff you need for the plugin. So what I'll do is just do a cut. You can copy if you want. I just do cut for this case, and then paste it into the plugins folder that I just created in the project that we're working with. So there you have it. Simple as that. Add the plugin through adding a plugins folder and just pasting into that directory. So now that I open the project, I'm going to reopen the editor. It takes a few minutes, and then now we have managed new plugins alerts. Quite simple. I open the little option there, or I can go into the edit plugins, and it'll be in the installed. It is already enabled for you automatically since it's in the project, so that's good. And now what I need to do is import a character. Now, real quick for everyone to understand here with the characters, and I'll go ahead and open Maya so you guys can see, and bear with me, this might take a little bit longer, but I definitely want to cover this section here so everyone knows what is going on here. So as I mentioned earlier, we're using a Mixamo character. I want to use a Mixamo character just for the sake of the demonstration here. If you go to mixamo.com, you have a bunch of characters you can select from. These are quick and dirty characters that you can just import and use them as you wish. Or you can actually upload your own character and process it through the automated rigging. So it's quite very simple, really easy tool. So this is a character that I've downloaded. I downloaded the biker, and if I import this to Maya, I just want to show you guys how the character is set up in this project here. So if I go ahead and open the entire skeleton of this character, you see the naming convention. This naming convention is actually the HIK naming convention is quite used a lot. And you can see here that the character is in a T-pose. This is a requirement for our plugin. Your characters must be in a T-pose. If your character is not in a T-pose, therefore, if it's in an A-pose, it is not readily available for Mocap. There are tools that you can use to manipulate the character to force it in a T-pose, but we highly recommend to work with characters T-pose. That's why Mixamo is a quite easy tool. If you're working with third-party applications, make sure it's in a T-pose. That saves you a whole lot of headache. So we'll just work with the T-pose for this webinar, and then what I will do, and let me close Maya. That was just for demonstration. Go back into Unreal here, and then what I will do is I'm going to import this character into the editor. But before I do, just a little bit of house cleaning here. Create a folder, name it however you need to. Click and drag. It's quite simple. Just click and drag. You want to import the skeleton mesh, which is very important for this process. Import all. There is a little bit of an error that comes into this import, but that's due to the Mixamo specialized character sets that it includes. So we'll wait a few seconds for that to import. Let's close that window. All right, so this is what we have right here in front of us. We have a couple of textures, we have the material, and these are the last three are the most important things we want to look at. So the next thing you want to do after that is set up. We have our characters ready to go. One of the things you want to do is you need to do two set of steps. After you import your character, what you want to do is you want to create an animation blueprint based on the skeleton that we just imported from the character. So what I'll do is I'll right click on the skeleton of the character. Right now I didn't, I'm keeping the naming convention for the character. I haven't changed it. I'm just right clicking on the skeleton of the character, and I'm going to create an animation blueprint. Okay, I'll keep it same name for now. You see it's skeleton anim. If I double click here, this is the window that we will be essentially assigning the axis data into the data bone system from the character. And this is where the magic happens. So this is the output pose. This is what we see from the character at gameplay, if you will. So we've already added the plugin, and we have this new tool called New Pose Calc. If you click on this little node here, you'll see that we have a series of arrays that are going like a little matrix that we have. Okay, so this is the input from Axis, and this is the bone system from the character that we're working with. So in most cases, if your character does not have the proper naming conventions, if you have a custom naming conventions, you can actually assign these bones according to the right column, which is, my apologies, you assign the bone system from your character to match the axis neuron on the left. So you would assign these as you need. Right now, our character, to be honest, it was kind of a bit of a cheating here. The character is already set up with a naming convention and such. If your character has a special naming prefix, make sure you put that. If it's robot, if it's something, you put a prefix, and then the plugin will automatically populate the bone accordingly. It would remove the prefix, and then it'll assign it much easier that way. So our retargeting, this is the retargeting of our plugin. A lot of users ask that question, does our plugin support retargeting? Yes, it does. This is a retargeting that our plugin supports at real time. Okay, so what I'll do is, now that everything's assigned, I will go ahead and connect the animated pose to the result here in the output pose. There's one more step left to go, and then all we need to do is just hit compile. As soon as you hit compile, you'll see the data is transferring over to the output of the character's movement. So that is one step that we need to had to do. So that is ready to go. Now, we've already done the skeleton animation. Now we need to do the blueprint for the character so that we can now use this character inside of our scene with the movement. So what I will do is I'll click on Blueprint Class, and we're going to be working with an actor. And what I will do is I'm just going to call this Biker Blueprint And now if I double click on this scene, now I have, this is where the recipe happens, where I assign the data now to the mesh of the character. So two things that are needed here, and they are the Perception Neuron plugin and also the skeleton mesh assignment. So let's bring the Perception Neuron add-on component, and we need the skeleton mesh. Okay. To get rid of the little sphere here, you can click and drag the skeleton mesh on top of the default scene. That gets rid of the skeleton of the circle that you have there. So now we'll look at the perception on component here. These are the components that are needed to assign the plugin to our software. So we'll worry about that afterwards. Right now we need to set up the skeleton mesh. So the sections that you want to focus on is in the animation and the mesh. So we need to assign the animation class here. And what I will do is I'm going to assign the animation class to the animation blueprint we just set up, that real-time data setting to our character's skeleton. So I'll click on the animation blueprint we just created, and now I'm going to assign the mesh. This is where we bring in the physical character. So now we have two important assets assigned, skeleton and the mesh, and this is our character blueprint. I will go ahead and compile here. Make sure you get that check mark. Get another check mark there. And then now we are ready to, we're almost there, but there's a few more steps to add. We're almost there to make this real time. All I need to do is click and drag the blueprint. Okay, that's what you want to work with, especially in gaming blueprints. You don't want to import the raw FBX or raw skeleton. Blueprint is where you want to import stuff. So if we go into the components here, remember the components we just set up. We have skeleton mesh and perception neuron. We have one more step. We need to tell Unreal to find an outsource, external source for data. In the scene, not the character, but in the scene. So we will import the perception neuron. If I click here on modes, we have a perception neuron manager. Many of our users overlook this step. Make sure everyone clicks and drag this manager over to your scene. Doesn't have to be any specific location. You can rename it. What we want to do on this section here is the so Perception Neuron Manager connects to the BVH data stream from Axis Studio, right? And then if I select on a character, I will have access to the individual character itself. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into Studio so we can make sure that we have everything set up for our users. And more or less the same steps apply for Axis Neuron, Neuron Pro, and Axis Studio. So in this case, we're going to be using Axis Studio. Already I have a pre-populated animation. I can press play, and I can loop this animation just to have it in the background. Next, I'm going to go into settings. The section you want to focus is BVH broadcasting. So this is the data that we're going to be sending over to Unreal. You can leave it data as by default. The skeleton data we have selected. Make sure displacement is deselected. And then the next section that you want to focus is UDP. Okay, by default, TCP is enabled. So if your Unreal communication is not working, make sure you're selecting UDP. That's there is an option to select for TCP. We recommend UDP for this process. So UDP selected. We have the data here, and we have the port number 7002. Okay, so I press OK. I have this enabled, and I press OK. That's it. Axis Neuron is sending data externally, and now I need to go into Unreal and map this data. So the first thing you want to do is get the data from Axis Studio. So let's go into our Perception Neuron Manager, and we're going to update the port number to 7002. And then we're getting that number from Axis Studio, so they can both communicate. So we have that section and updated. And then the next thing you want to do is go into select the character, and now we want to assign the character information from Access Studio. By default, the plugin says none. We have to put the name according to the Access Studio. Okay, in this case I have char00. You can name this. This character name is very important in this process because that's what assigns the characters to your characters in Unreal. So now I'm going to change the avatar name from none to Daniel. Okay, and then that's it. And that's the combining factor for both systems there. Um, so if I press play, you can see that the data is being sent real time. So you see the characters just moving around, walking around, moving the hands. This is real time. If I needed to, I can put a suit on and do the animation real time. This is all being done, at playtime. So if you're using a game, you're developing a game, and you want to have a character, somebody interact with a player in real time, this is what you want to do. This is a good way to just see your character's movement as well, just to test things out and make sure everything's in working order. So that sums up the process of using our plugin, Unreal plugin for Perception Neuron inside of Unreal. The next section that I want to cover with you guys is using a BVH file. So if you don't want to use real time, you just want to use some file to test your character. In this case, we'll go back into Access Studio. And then Access Studio, I have my animation playing back. And then I'm currently in editing panel. For those Access Neuron Pro, you'll have everything is in one entire window, and you'll have the option to export through the file menu on the top left. For Access Studio, we have at the bottom right, and I'll just click on Export, and I'll select BVH for this example. And I'm leaving the namings as default for now, and then selecting the skeleton. I'll put a T-pose at the beginning, and then select the folder. I'm just going to just populate this in the root folder that I'm working in right now. Hit export. It's going to do its magic. And what I can do now, I can import this BVH file into the project window. And now I have a BVH file here for animation. It's quite easy to use this file from our plugin perspective here in Perception Neuron. You see here that we have avatar name and we have a BVH asset. I typically like to reset the avatar name to default. And what I will do is I will select the file that I just imported by selecting it here. So if I click play, I have the character. Now this is not real time, this is file. So if you have a series of different files, 1, 10, 20, you can scrub through the files to play on your character. So that's more or less of what you have. So that sums up today's webinar. If you guys have any questions, would like to hear. Ari, if you have any questions regarding using the plugin, I'm more than happy to discuss.
Not off the top of my head, but
Okay.
let's give our audience members a couple minutes to see if they have any questions to add to the chat.
Not a problem. Yeah, this is we'll give them a few minutes. So this plugin is just using real time data and just kind of either using, as I mentioned, a use case for in play animation. There's different ways to use it. With the next couple of videos, we're gonna go into deep dive into using the animation for your character play. If you want to do a walk cycle for your character, if you want to do an idle motion for your character, you want to do a jump, those are things that become useful for gameplay, and you can accomplish that with our hardware. So this is more or less like the first of series that we're doing for Unreal, and I hope everyone who's watching this video can have a better understanding how to set up the characters in Unreal, and for the most part, using characters from Mixamo works wonders. It's quite easy. Custom characters should follow the same rules the Mixamo does. T-pose, the bone, the bone direction as is, to the adjacent bones, so that the data can be retargeted correctly. Most common issues that we find with users having character problems is because the character has a custom rigging. So just rule of thumb, just make sure that you're following Mixamo's character structure.
And exported iClone characters also work
Yes.
Seamlessly.
Yes.
So with this one being sort of the very basic introduction to getting mocap data streaming into Unreal, what are some of the things that we're going to focus on that will be layered on top of this knowledge in our Friday webinar?
Yeah, so we want to ultimately have the user build a library of movements so that they can use for gameplay. There's there's a few mocap movements that you can download, that you can purchase, but with the hardware you can build your own library of movements. It can be, you might have, not all characters come in same come in, in the same shapes and sizes. They all differ. So you want to build a library for, maybe a baby movement, a zombie movement, a warrior movement, something like that, so you can build off of that. So Fridays will accomplish more or less using the animation for gameplay, and it's quite simple, quite easy. So it's going to be a lot of fun for users to get. And also everything applies to iClone characters. I know a lot of our users have iClones, so yes, it'll apply seamlessly.
We've got a message in the chat from Solomon, and he was wondering if we're going to be going briefly over recording options so that we can record that live streaming mocap data into sequencer or take recorder.
So that is in play with what our next webinar will be on Tuesday. We're going to be covering live link. So we will be streaming the data from Axis directly into the character, and we're going to be recording directly into sequencer. So we will cover that. Make sure you join us next Tuesday. We will have someone from Unreal joining us and talk a little bit more about that. So stay tuned for that. Solomon, and then we will brush a little bit of our next upcoming VPS virtual production platform, because it's all kind of daisy chained together. This is the beginning with the realtime. Friday will be more of gameplay assets animation, and then Tuesday will be live link. And then once you open up live link, it just makes introduces a lot of different inputs for production, for anything that requires animation. So yes, we will cover that.
All right.
Yeah, I think that's it. That was a brief webinar.
Cool. Yeah, I definitely want to invite you guys to keep coming to our webinars on Tuesdays and Fridays, starting at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And as you guys have questions, feel free to reach out via email if you guys get stuck on something or have another question. And we will try to get these recordings posted up and online as quickly as possible.
Right. And I'm just putting up our emails there. Feel free to email us. We also have a support email, contact@mocap.com. If you have any special requests, as Solomon just had some, feel free to send them over, and we will gather the information and make sure we cover that during the next webinar. So this is definitely catered to our users to empower them with their mocap hardware and use it the best possible way.
Well, everybody, stay safe out there, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And
All right.
we will see you next time.
All right. Cheers. Thank you.